Hey there, I'm Ian Douglas. I'm the author of the website techinterview.guide, and I'm here to help people with career advancement and interview preparation. My live stream on Twitch covers topics such as company research, how to build resumes and cover letters, applying for the job, getting through interviews, and what to do during negotiations. I've coached thousands and thousands of people over the years to get jobs at the biggest tech companies in the industry, and I'm here to help you too. The following episode is taken from a longer live stream event and may contain interactions with other people in chat. Check out the end of the episode for more information. Let's get to it. All right, so as with most resume reviews, I usually start with a piece of advice that says, opinions are like armpits. Everybody's got a couple and some of them smell. You don't have to take my advice. These are just my thoughts, and I will give a bit of context to these resume reviews that we're doing today, and then I'll get these snipped out and put up on YouTube later on. So the first one came in anonymously and said, I was currently promoted to a junior software engineer from an intern role, and I'm just looking for things I need to change and update on the resume. So at a first glance, I would say if you're working, if this person's going to continue to work in India, then having the location on the resume is probably okay. But if you're looking for other like remote types of jobs and so on, I would probably take the location off the resume. I think it can subject you to geographic bias, especially as companies are starting to kind of toy with the idea of like going back to the office. They might start biasing against people based on geography. And so I would typically take the geography off the resume here completely. They've got their contact info, email, LinkedIn, GitHub. All those are good links to have on there. I think that those are fine. As a hiring manager, I'm going to probably spend more time looking at your GitHub than your LinkedIn, but I may look at the LinkedIn just to see how well you kind of coordinate the other context that you have on the page with what you have on LinkedIn. In this case, the person put their education first and foremost. I think that that's okay, but now that you've got professional experience, that kind of starts to sort of take precedent over other things that you have on here, like your coursework and the education and so on. So for me as a hiring manager, I would want to see a skills block at the very top, because I need to figure out in a hurry, are you qualified for my job? And that's not necessarily like, you know, you're doing a pretty good job here, like putting bold on some of these skills that you're using on the job. But I don't see like just a skills block on here. Oh, you do. It's like right here. I would prefer to see this skills block up at the very top, because you're showing me a whole lot more about you and what you're capable of doing and the value that you bring to my company. But it's like all the way down here on the page. If I zoom out, it's like down here at the bottom. Me as a hiring manager, I like to see that as the very first thing, because I want to see at a glance, in a hurry, are you qualified for the job post that I have open? And so I like to see that as the very first thing on the resume, and then from there show me like any relevant work experience. And then for yourself, because you've only been working for a little while, having project code on here I think is still fine. As far as separating out the coursework here from your education, I would probably try to find a way to like combine these. This is taking up a lot of vertical space that I think you could probably compress by, you know, if these are the courses that you took as part of this education, then I would just make these some bullet points underneath here. So I would just say Bachelor of Technology, Computer Science and Engineering, and then underneath that put bullet points of data structures, algorithm analysis, computer networking, systems programming, and so on. And I would just make those like maybe 2 bullet points of like lists of things. So one would be like, well, the first one should always be like the programming skills that you learned, and then the second one would be like other things. So the first one would be like your systems programming, computer networking, operating systems, maybe software methodology. In fact, I would do systems programming, then software methodology, and then database management, and then operating systems. I would put those 4 in that order on that first bullet point. The second bullet point, then I would do like data structures, algorithms, internet technology. I don't know that you really need to call that out anymore. I mean, that's kind of an expectation in a lot of what we do in the world today. So I don't know that you explicitly need to call that one out. But I would add those as bullet points under the education, because that was the coursework that you took at that as part of that education. From there, so they mentioned in their email that they just got promoted to a junior role from an internship, so congratulations on that. And I like that you're calling out the current skills that you're using on the job. I think that this is really important to do. So even though I want this skills block to be at the very top, where I can see that you know Python and TypeScript and JavaScript and so on. TypeScript also, I believe, has a capital S, so you want to make sure that you capitalize things properly. One thing that's interesting here is you don't specifically call out JavaScript. Now, writing in Angular and React and Node, I mean, that implies JavaScript, but a non-technical recruiter looking at your resume or CV may not make that connection. They may look at this and go, they don't currently use JavaScript on their job. So they might not, they might pass on that. So again, having the skills block at the top lets them know that you do JavaScript, but make sure that you're adding JavaScript in here as well, just for the non-technical people that might be looking at your resume. You could probably shorten these months to just 3-letter words, so FEB, DECJAN. It'll just shorten those up a little bit more, just so the date doesn't take a huge amount of space. And then another internship role, developed a blogging application. I would probably want to see, like, what technology did you do this in? You built an e-commerce app in Django, but you don't really tell me, like, what you used to build these other things. Was it all Django? Because I think you could just tell me in one bullet point, like, all work done in Python, Django. Again, people that are not technical that are looking at this, they're like, okay, you claim to know Python, but I don't actually see Python anywhere in your work history here. I don't see JavaScript anywhere in the work history in the projects here. So you kind of need to call that out a little more explicitly. But yeah, I would like to see a little bit more context about, like, how you built some of these things. So REST API using Django REST framework, that's fine. And this one you specifically said you did Django as well. But if these other applications were also done in Python and Django, then I think you could just have a single bullet point here that says all projects or all work done in Python and Django, or, similar to what you did here, like full stack apps using Python, Django, JavaScript, or whatever that you did at that particular internship. Now, the fact that it was only December to January, that's only a 2-month long internship. That's a pretty short internship, especially considering that some companies kind of close down over holidays, for winter holidays and things like that. That feels like a very short internship to me. So that kind of stands out to me as something that's a little odd. So you may need to have a good story to explain why that internship was short. Develop authentication authorization system using Node and Express. That's fine. You could probably take these periods off the end. Bullet points don't need to be grammatically correct sentences. So I think you could probably take the periods off of here, especially since you don't have periods on the ends of some of these other lines. You want to be consistent about that. I would probably try to find a way to shorten this bullet point to not wrap that one word onto a new line. Try to keep your bullet points short. I would say this is about the maximum length that you want a bullet point, because you do want these dates to kind of stay isolated over here. Like, if you can imagine, if this was the cutoff right here, and I'm kind of moving with my mouse, if you imagine that the cutoff was right here, then all these date ranges would be kind of in a visual column of, like, all the dates kind of stacked on top of each other. And so I generally advise people, like, don't let text go underneath those dates, but you also don't want to wrap a bullet point onto multiple lines. So I would try to find a way to reduce the amount of text on here. Developed a small API coded in JavaScript with the help of Express and Node.js. I would just say developed an API in JavaScript. So you don't have to say it was small, and you can just say with instead of coded in. So developed an API with JavaScript, Express, Node, Mongo. Designed to short a long URL. So I would actually reword this whole line. I would say developed a short URL generator using JavaScript, Express, Node, and Mongo. And just, like, that'll keep that whole line really short. Because the grammar on designed a short to long URL won't make sense to a lot of people. Like, I know that what you built was a URL shortener, but some other people aren't going to make that connection. So you need to explicitly say developed an API or developed a URL shortener API using JavaScript, Express, Node, Mongo. Deliver results in any application with a single endpoint. So the word deliver is a present tense verb, and you want to make sure that you always write these things in sort of past tense. So delivered in the past. Delivered results in any application with a single endpoint. This needs some clarification here. This kind of sounds like you're trying to do like a GraphQL kind of thing where they only had to hit one endpoint and it did everything. As a developer, I don't want like one endpoint that does everything. I want multiple endpoints that I can hit to do like just one little task. As a manager, this tells me that you built a lot of logic and a lot of responsibility into one endpoint, and now I have a single point of failure. So to me, this stands out as a negative thing on a resume. Returns JSON to the endpoint to make data handling easy. I think you're over-explaining what all this stuff is doing. You could just say developed a JSON API, you know, and then you could remove this whole bullet point and just put the word JSON in front of API. I think that would be all you'd need there. I like that you're linking over to source code on these projects. If it is something that you can actually deploy publicly, I would love to see this hosted somewhere. I don't know that you necessarily need the GitHub icon next to this, and if you want to keep the GitHub icon, that's fine, but I'd probably put a space in between the icon and the word source code. And I would also make it like an underline kind of thing so that people visually looking at it know that it's something they can click on. I happen to notice it because I hovered over it, but I think it would be better if you actually like, you know, made it a different color, put an underline on it so that people would recognize that as an actual link. Developed a full stack laundry management system coded in Angular, Node, Mongo, and Express. Okay. Developed authentication auth to role-based access system. So if this is part of that laundry system, then you've already told me that you developed the application. And so you don't really need to say that you developed in here. You could just say like included role-based authentication authorization. I think that would be all you need. As far as like how you're building this stuff out, I think this is fine. Developer tools really aren't going to matter very much to companies. They're not really going to care what editor you use, or the fact that you can use, you know, Git Bash or any kind of shell. Like as long as you can get your job done, that's really all they care about. What tools you use are really inconsequential. So most companies aren't going to care at all to see developer tooling on here. It's just taking up space. Technologies and frameworks, I would probably break these into two separate things. You're listing out frameworks and then like a system level kind of thing, a database. Linux, you could probably do that as part of your systems. Git and GitHub are tools. REST and API development, that's not really a technology or a framework. That's just what you're familiar with as far as like developing APIs. And then unit testing. So what I would do instead is I would break this into maybe a couple of other things. So I think I would get rid of the developer tools, and then I would have a second one here for like frameworks and libraries, where you list out React, Angular, Node, Express, maybe which library you used for Mongo and Postgres, and then which libraries you used for unit testing. And then I would have another bullet point after that called like, system tools and technologies or something. And that's where you'd list Docker, Linux, Git, and GitHub, things like that. Putting REST and API development, like you've kind of already told me that you've got that kind of experience in your project work. Is it bad to just call out that you know how to build RESTful APIs? I think it's fine, but it's going to be like a really short thing to put on here. It doesn't really fit in with the rest of this. Like for me, I've done RESTful APIs, I've done GraphQL APIs, I've tinkered with gRPC APIs, and so I could like fill up a bullet point list with some of these different things. But you've kind of already told me that you can build, APIs through your project work here. So I don't know that you need to explicitly call that out as a skill. Extracurricular, I like seeing extracurricular stuff, and I think it's fine if you need the room on the page. I think it's okay to put this on here. Written technical blogs with over 35,000 views on Medium. Okay, so you do have a link over to your Medium, that's fine. Mentoring, teaching about different technologies through workshops and videos. So I think you could probably get rid of like blogger and mentor, because you're telling me that you're a blogger here and here, so this becomes very redundant. You tell me that you do mentoring and that you're teaching, and so you don't need to call yourself a mentor here as well. I would probably, and because you're giving me the link to Medium over here, you don't really need to call out Medium over here. And because if you think about how you've presented these things over here, like with the company, you've got the company name and then your role. So what I would probably do over here for extracurricular, you've already told me you're a blogger, you give me a link to Medium. I would actually call that like, Medium link or something like that, not just link. That way you can move Medium off of here. Because what you're showing me over here is like the location of where that was. What I would do over here is like mentoring at the interview codes or something like that, and actually put that next to the word over here. Software engineering virtual experience program participant. This doesn't tell me anything at all about the value that this brings to my company. Like, I don't know what the virtual experience program is. You don't tell me anything about it. Where these other ones, you do give me a couple of bullet points explaining like what this is about, but you don't for these. So this has zero value to me as a hiring manager. You don't tell me anything about it other than, they're banks, they're financial corporations, that's fine. But like, I have no idea what you did here. So it has zero value to me. One thing you could probably do is shrink your font size a little bit if you need a little more room on the page. The font size does look a little big. I would typically tell people like keep things to like a 10-point font. Now I do kind of see where you're using like the location here over and over, and so it does kind of make sense down here that you're showing the location of the website or the company where you're doing that work. But where that feels a little inconsistent is like up here for your experience, you're putting the location of your job on the left side of the page. And so again, you want to keep some consistency there with that. So that'd be like a handful of advice I would give on that resume. Yeah, you're welcome to kind of take that advice or not. I'm always happy to re-review a resume if you'd like. So yeah, hopefully that'll help you out. One last thing I might mention, these really long lines that you've got across the page, I think they do a good job of like kind of separating things out. But you're using kind of a lot of them. Like these links up here you've got underlined, but the other links like your source code and so on don't follow that pattern as well. And the font sizes here seem a little bit off. Like the font size that you're using here for like your projects seems smaller than the font size that you're using here for these extracurricular things. So I generally tell people like you get 3 font sizes for the whole page. You get 1 font size for your name. So I would typically do that at like 18-point to 20-point font. You get a second font size for these headings, and I would typically aim for like a 12 to 14-point font. Everything else on the page is 10-point font. Like literally highlight everything on the page, 10-point font, and then go back and change the headings to 12-point font and change your name to like an 18 or 20-point font. Just that way everything is a consistent size across the page. And I think you'll find that you'll have a little more room to put stuff in here. If it feels like really empty at that point, then I would add a little bit of extra space in between these sections, just so it doesn't feel really crammed. Because you've got a little bit of empty space in between your technical skills and extracurricular, but the empty space between your project and technical skills, to me, visually seems like less vertical space here. And so, you do want to kind of like use that page to your advantage as far as like overall spacing and layout and things like that goes. Cool. So hopefully that'll help you out. If you got other questions, you're welcome to reach out over email and let me know. What's up, GBav, EpiCat, Bets? Good to see all of you in chat. Thanks for dropping by today. Just doing a couple of resume reviews, maybe do a little bit of Discord. My wife is helping at a marathon run or something today. She works part-time for a race company that like puts on marathons and stuff within cities. So she had to get up at like 1:30 in the morning to like go get a whole bunch of equipment, pick up like 100 pounds of ice, get there, like start setting all the stuff up and whatever. So she's not home yet. So when she gets home, she's going to crash. So I'm going to take the kids out for the day and we're just going to give her a nice quiet house that she can kind of chill and get some sleep and stuff like that. So I thought I'd do just a couple of quick resume reviews, maybe a couple questions, and then I'll probably bounce and like go take care of some stuff today, get a haircut, and just go hang with the boys for the day. But hope you're all doing well. GBav, what's going on down in your neck of the woods these days? You redid your resume long ago, never put it to use, just started driving for Lyft again. Cool. I mean, if you want me to take a look at a resume, I'd be happy to help you brush it up too. So I think a lot of how you present, what you do on a resume is pretty useful no matter what kind of company that you do, or what kind of company you want to work for, what kind of job you do, where you want to work. Like that presentation of skills is the same no matter what. Like whoever that hiring manager is, they need to see in a hurry what value does GBav bring to my company, in order to make the determination of whether they should call you for an interview. And so a lot of the things that I kind of talk about here tend to be tech specific about like, hey, make sure you put your tech stack in your project and whatever. You're not going to have project work when you're doing Lyft driving, but you can still talk about like the customer experience and how you provide the best experience you can, and what that would mean to a company where you want to apply for another job. So happy to help out on that anytime. I mean, I'm happy to take a look at non-technical resumes as well. Thanks for checking that out. I hope that you found it helpful. I always appreciate feedback, so please let me know what you think. I appreciate any subscriptions, so please tell your friends and colleagues about it as well. Check out the website techinterview.guide for more information about when I'm live streaming and all of my free content. Drop by a live stream anytime to ask questions or message me privately, whatever makes you most comfortable. See you next time.